Welcome to the Information Security Forum podcast. I'm your host, Tavia Gilbert, and this podcast is the second of two episodes featuring ISF Managing Director Steve Durbin in conversation with Dr. Reinhard Brandl, German Member of Parliament specializing in digital policy.
We were a victim at one time, and we see how big efforts were needed to make our own infrastructure secure.
In this conversation, Steve speaks with Dr. Brandl about the threat horizon in Germany, including attacks from nation-states, and about his ideas regarding the role of government in protecting cyber assets.
So let's turn now to look at some of the challenges that we all face from a cyber standpoint. And I want to talk a little bit about the role of cybercrime in general, but perhaps nation-state crime in particular. As an elected representative, and indeed with the responsibilities that you have, what do you anticipate will be some of the threats that we need to be concerned about that are posed by nation-states?
In the last years, we saw a dramatic rise of state-sponsored cybercrime, also here in Germany. A few weeks ago, we had reports on a cybercrime attack. What we assume it came from North Korea. They were spreading ransomware. Even German mid-sized companies were affected. And the only way to fight against this is to collaborate with other nations on several levels. So on the one side, on a technical level, on the second side, on a diplomatic level, that we clearly address to other nations that we do not accept nation-sponsored cybercrime. On a third side, we have to use sanctions and other means to clearly mark that we are not ready to accept this kind of crimes.
I mean, one of the challenges with cybercrime of any shape or form is, of course, being absolutely certain of the attribution, so understanding exactly who the threat actor is. And that has proved quite difficult. It takes quite a long time to unpick all of the different components to try to understand where the threat has come from. Do you think that governments can ever be nimble enough to properly manage that sort of level of threat and to respond almost in an immediate fashion? Or is that something that really we're not going to be able to do?
I would first ask to your question of attribution. From my experience, in a lot of cases, attribution is possible because we see several similar attacks with same software components, and it's easy to attribute it on a technical level or with a high certainty to a certain actor. But the question is the consequence. Mm-hmm. So what should be the consequence for a state how they should react? And the problem I see is that the states are uncertain about how they should react and say that why they do not attribute it publicly. They know it internally, but what is the consequence when we say, okay, we were attacked by country XY, how should we react? And what we have to find is mechanisms to react on cybercrime. This is on the one side. A second answer is, I don't think the right reaction is to hack back.
Right.
This does not work in the cyber field. We have to find other ways to react on cyber attacks.
Could you give me some examples of how you think we should be responding? Because, hackback is something that I suppose in certain areas is potentially gaining popularity. And, we hear talk of certain organizations that you see to that and nations setting up that capability. So I'm interested in some of the alternatives that you see to that.
So we saw a few years ago massive attacks from China to US companies and also to the US government. And the US reacted on a very classical way. They put people from China to court in absentia. They freezed money from Chinese men who were related with this kind of attacks. And finally, there was a famous meeting of Obama and Xi Jinping, where they signed a contract and they promised to reduce this kind of cyber attacks, and consequently they were reduced. They reacted on a diplomatic way with classical sanction on cyber attacks, and I found this very adequate.
Mm-hmm. So that's using fairly traditional means to combat what is an ever-increasing and emerging threat. One of the things that it strikes me that we all need to do better is to ensure that as individuals we're much safer online, so that we understand some of the security implications of what we do. I'm thinking in particular of the fact that pretty much all of us now have at least one, if not more, smartphone, that we access everything from mobile banking through to email, through, in certain instances, corporate systems. We started to touch on this slightly earlier in terms of the level of education, the level of awareness. One of the things I'm interested in getting your perspective on is, how do you think we should be going about raising that level of education, the level of awareness on the need to increase our understanding of cybersecurity as individuals?
So we have several awareness campaigns in Germany, but I think the most efficient are in schools. Mm-hmm. Because in school you can really reach different children, and it must be part of the curricula in schools. So this is the way we should go.
And what's the role of government, as you see it, in facilitating that in the schools?
So we have in Germany a shared responsibility. For education, it's a state level, and for the equipment of the schools, it's a local level. On the local level, I see very different approaches. There are some directors of schools that are open and say foster digitalization of the school, and there it works. However, there are others where the teachers are uncertain, they're not sure how to integrate modern cyber issues in the school agenda, and that does not work. And what we can do from government side, we have to train the trainers to educate the teachers that they put this as a regular topic into their school agenda.
I think from a strategic standpoint, I would agree with you. I think that it has to begin in our schools. The concern I have with that, however, is the amount of time that it takes for that to come through into the general population, because we're talking about then perhaps potentially missing a gap in the middle. What are the sorts of things that you think we can do, either that are government-sponsored or indeed through initiatives such as the ones that the BSI has, to raise the level of awareness of people who have left school and who are now in the workplace but perhaps aren't as aware of some of the cyber issues that we've been talking about today?
What we've also seen in the last years is that the companies have programs to raise the awareness for their employees, and this helps as well. For instance, I've often seen screensavers, where screensavers show certain rules of behavior, and it's done indirectly, it's over there and you see it, and it's a way to make people aware of threats and how they behave correctly. This is one way, but either it comes with the school or with the companies. I think these are the two major points of contact.
You were talking earlier about the fact that you also have responsibility for all of the technology issues across trying to combine data centers and so on. What's your honest view of the level of understanding of cyber challenges amongst your colleagues in the Parliament? Do politicians really understand some of these challenges? I'm thinking in particular here not so much of what we've seen in Germany, but about some of the congressional hearings that we saw around Facebook and that kind of thing. And I'm just intrigued to see what your perspective is on the level of understanding of your colleagues in the Parliament.
So the level of understanding raises, and there were two big events for it. The first was the Snowden affair, because with the Snowden affair it became public what is possible with cyber means. And the second event was the attack on the German Bundestag. Mm-hmm. Because we were a victim at one time, and we see how big efforts we were needed to make our own infrastructure secure. And these events helped to raise the understanding of parliamentarians in Germany.
Right. And do you think that that parliamentarians in Germany perhaps are at a higher level of awareness than some of their colleagues across the rest of the EU?
I'm not sure. I cannot judge this. But I can tell you that data protection, for instance, has a higher importance in Germany than it has in other countries of the European Union. And it comes from our history, goes back to the Nazi time and also German Democratic Republic with the Staatssicherheit. So we are very cautious about data protection in Germany, and I think that's why it has a certain importance in the German government as well.
Let's look a little bit forward now, Reinhard. Let's try and anticipate the future. What are the sorts of challenges that you see facing both government and individual citizens over the next 2 to 3 years from a cyber standpoint?
From a government side, our big challenge is to make our own services online.
Right.
So people are used to do everything with their smartphones. They can order everything with their smartphones, but they cannot use very seldom government services online. They have to go to the offices and do it in a quite traditional way. And people were asking us, hey, that's not online, why do I have to go to the government office or to the local office? So this is a major challenge for governments and on different levels. The second is there are new developments we have to follow. For instance, artificial intelligence. Today, our government has proposed artificial intelligence strategy for Germany because we see that other companies and also other countries are far, far away from us. They have invested earlier and more money in this domain. And the third thing I want to mention is security. We have seen several attacks also on critical infrastructure in Germany. They were not successful, but we see that the danger is growing and we have to invest in cybersecurity as well on the infrastructure side as well on the government side.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the role of government, if you like, is to really try to set the standard, enable companies to be able to fall in line with what makes sense in terms of protecting Germany, if you like, within its borders. And the individuals within that, then through the sorts of programs that we've been talking about in our schools and levels of awareness and so on, the whole thing really comes together, I suppose. So I think it would be fair to say that your view is that the role of government is to really set those boundaries, set the forward direction, and to then assist organizations, individuals, to enable their own levels of security that comply or fall in line with those standards. Is that fair? Is that really how you see the role of government in cyber?
Yes, government has to help, to assist people, but actually the individuals have their own responsibility. We cannot control everybody and we cannot control what an individual installs on its PC or on its smartphone. Its own responsibility. What can government help is to educate and to give programs to raise the awareness.
Reinhard, thank you very much indeed for stopping by and sharing some of those insights. Absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure that people listening to this will be encouraged by some of the steps that certainly are being taken by government in Germany to address some of these topical issues. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
That was the second of our two-part conversation with Dr. Reinhard Brandl. If you missed the first part of the conversation about the broad challenges digitalization presents for the government, both in Germany and globally, be sure to visit the media page at securityforum.org. We're bringing you more great conversations with experts in upcoming podcast episodes, which we'll share with you soon. In the meantime, we'd love to hear from you. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover or someone you'd like us to interview, get in touch through our website or tweet us at securityforum. For more resources for CISOs and anyone looking to enhance the security of their business, please visit securityforum.org. Thank you for listening.